when the military told me that I had 1 year to resolve the humanitarian challenges, I heard that as I needed to find a wife in a year.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. My name is Reesa and I'm your host. We are talking to real families about real stories here on The Real Family Eats, where we've got food for thought and thoughtful food. So let's eat. Hey everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so excited. We have John here to chat with us. John, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. I'm so excited to hear about your story, also this recipe. But before we do that, for anybody who doesn't know you, could you introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. My name is John Bacon Gilbert. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have a practice in San Diego as well as Marietta. And I'm just really excited to be able to have the opportunity to help couples as well as individuals with challenges they're experiencing.
Wonderful. So shameless plug section for anybody that might need your services. In San Diego, Marietta, do you also do virtual as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so all of California?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wonderful. So how could somebody find you or any of your socials?
Right, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, Couple Connection SD. Through email, you can contact me info@coupleconnectionsd.com.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure to have all those links for you on the show notes, so make sure to check that out. Okay, so tell me about this recipe. Why did you choose this recipe? Sure. And kind of what we're going to be making today?
Absolutely, yeah. So, a little bit about myself. My mom was an in-home daycare provider when I was growing up. And she absolutely loved to bake, loved to, she would make all of my cakes. She would make, around the holidays, she would do dinner rolls and cinnamon rolls.
Okay.
And this was something that kind of just, happened throughout the year. It wasn't just specific around a particular holiday.
Okay.
And I always loved the smell of it when she was baking. I sometimes can remember coming home from school and you could almost smell it before you came in the house. It's like, ooh, fresh banana bread.
Yes.
And it's really important too, is I have a 26-year-old son and he's made it now. I've passed the recipe on to him.
Really? So, I love that. Okay. Well, I'm so excited to learn this one. So I think banana bread is also a staple in our home. But my recipe is a little bit different. So I'm super excited to try this one. So tell me what the steps are and I'll get things going while we chat today.
Sure. Yeah, it's really simple. That's one of the reasons why I like it.
Yeah.
You really just take all the ingredients with the exception of the brown sugar.
Okay.
And you toss it in the bowl and you mix it up for about 30 seconds. And you pre-grease the pan.
Okay.
And pour it in the pan.
Wonderful. Yeah. And so your oven, what do you set your oven at?
350.
350. Okay. About how long do you normally?
I usually go for about 40 minutes.
Okay.
And then I take it out and that's when I put the brown sugar. I kind of sprinkle the brown sugar, which is optional.
Okay.
I like things to be a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
And then put it back in there for 15 to 20 minutes.
Ooh.
We use the toothpick.
Okay.
So you stick that in there. If it comes out clean, it's done.
Yeah. And I love that's such a different take. Again, that's very different from what I've ever had, is that like you said, that brown sugar kind of almost crust on it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's yummy. Okay. Well, I can do that. I can plug and play. While I'm doing that, I'd love to hear, I know one of the stories that you're willing to share with us is a little bit about your journey in single dad life and kind of, especially at the beginning, some of those struggles that you were kind of having to navigate.
Right.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that piece and,
Sure.
and what that looked like?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, I never thought I was going to be a single dad. It all kind of just happened very quickly.
How quickly are we talking?
Probably within three. I got custody of my son when he was 3.
Okay.
And so my wife and I started to experience some challenges within the relationship. Really, within 6 months of marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was in the military. I was deployed, and I I remember having this. I found a postcard in one of my travels, and it was a picture of like a sled of dogs, like a team of dogs.
Okay.
And it said, "The view never changes." I'm sorry. If you're not the lead dog, the view never changes. And I remember I had my son's name and my wife's name there. And I really had this drive and determination to just be, to succeed, to have a different life. Because at the time I was deployed to Antarctica.
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Yeah.
So you went real far out there.
Absolutely. Really far. And so when I came home, that's when from my deployment, that's when we really started experiencing some challenges.
Mom.
And we ended up splitting up. And then not long after that, I said, I want custody. And I at the time had orders to Air Station Cape Cod in Massachusetts.
Okay.
But my wife was in Southern California. And so I told the military, I said, I'll take anything in Southern California. And not long after that, I got custody, and it was a challenge to go from a life of military where I'm expected to be available to the country,
yeah,
and to be not have anyone really to care for him. So it was a big struggle.
So were you still in the military by this point that you have full custody?
Yes, absolutely. I was, and I got what was called a humanitarian transfer. So they put me on land. And said, you have a year to kind of resolve this issue, so to speak.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I had a custody with him the whole time.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about navigating that, because parenting just in general is hard when we start out. Now you're adding on not only one, but several layers of things that are a challenge. And so I'm really curious, kind of what did that look like for you, and kind of what was going on for you mentally even?
Yeah. I think one of the things that's important to recognize, my son was born in 97.
Okay.
And times have changed a lot. I'm a therapist today. I have a different understanding about what a relationship looks like. But at the time I really had the sense that my job was to be a provider. And so I wasn't really deploying a whole heck of a lot of emotional support. And so my main focus was being a provider. And so when the military told me that I had 1 year to resolve the humanitarian challenges, I heard that as I needed to find a wife in a year. So
really,
I needed somebody to help me with that process.
Yeah.
And I rose to the occasion, because again, I was focused on being the best father I could. And part of that was, taking a sacrifice if I needed to provide somebody in his life that could help shoulder the burden with me. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how that narrative kind of came about for you? Like you said, that when you heard, you've got a year, it was a year to find somebody else,
right,
kind of in that position. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
It was absolutely 100% rooted in my necessity to provide.
Okay.
I really enjoyed being in the military. That was, I didn't make a whole heck of a lot of money, but that was the most money I had made in my life at that time. And I really saw it as a source of stability.
Okay.
That I would be able to provide medical insurance. I'd be able to provide, a secure environment. And so that's really the mindset I was in, was like wanting to provide stability and give him as much of a safe space as he could have.
Yeah. And so it sounds like in that mind frame, going back and, like you said, being able to go back into the military and provide in that way was kind of how you saw
absolutely
it needed to go.
Right.
So walk us through that.
Sure.
Is that how it went? How did that kind of work out?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Not exactly. No, as many people could probably imagine, a marriage that starts out with that kind of pressure. There was a lot of pressure on it, and it didn't last very long.
Yeah.
However, I ended up getting stationed on land.
Okay.
And so that kind of removed that necessity to have somebody there. So I was a a single father for quite a few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that difficult to shift that? Because if, as you're mentioning, so was the next partner still in the picture during those years, or were you doing that kind of
all solo?
Wow.
Yeah. No, that next partner moved back to her hometown.
Got it. So, I mean, what was that like for you to kind of have that shift? You're going into it with like that mindset, as you mentioned, kind of provider, and now you're having to kind of put on multiple hats, I imagine.
Right. Yeah, it was a challenge. It was a challenge because I'd like to believe that when we turn 18, that suddenly we get a new program downloaded in our brain that tell us when to be, how to be an adult. You're an adult now, and then you have a child. Okay, you're a parent now.
Yeah.
I didn't get that download. I don't know if Apple missed it somehow.
Wouldn't that be nice though if we got one of those every time we had a new life transition?
Right. So it was difficult. It was. I have this joke that when he was born in December, and I have this picture of me holding him next to the Christmas tree, and people see it and they say, "Wow, it's like a baby raising a baby." And I was like, "Exactly."
Wow.
So it was really challenging. So I really consider my son to be my best teacher. He really taught me a lot about life, about how to be a parent, how to show up differently for him. So it was really learning the process. He was my teacher.
Is that an insight that took you a while to get to?
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking that at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time I was thinking like, the important things that I had known as, essentially I was giving my son the relationship with me and giving him the things that I didn't have as a father. So I was trying to I was parenting how I wanted to be parented.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up loving all sports. I especially loved baseball. Okay. And from the earliest age, I could remember just begging my dad to come out and play catch with me. My dad had no interest in sports whatsoever. I distinctly remember him oftentimes saying, "Not now, son, I'm busy." Wow. And I remember being about 13 years old, tears streaming down my face because I just wanted to connect with my dad any way I could. And I said, when I have a child, it's going to be different.
You said that even then?
Out loud. Yeah. At 13.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember when my son came, I really felt this sense of like, okay, I'm going to prove this. And so when my son was really old enough to stand, I had a wiffle ball bat in his hand and throwing him wiffle balls in the house. Coached him all through Little League. We won a couple of championships together. And when he was 12, he said, "Dad," he says, "I don't like baseball. You do."
Wow.
Yeah. And
did that hit hard?
It continues to hit hard. Every time I see it, I can feel chills right now.
Wow.
Saying that. Yeah. Yeah. It really hit hard. And that's what I mean by like being a teacher, that I realized in that moment that I had left my son feeling the same exact way my dad left me feeling, because my son wasn't interested in baseball.
Yeah. Where do you go from there? Because that's a pretty big blow. It sounds like you went into it kind of with this mindset, I'm going to be the dad that I didn't have. And, for you, it sounds like it presented in that kind of, I'm going to connect with you over sports and do all these things where, like you said, it sounds like, his feedback was, this isn't necessarily for me what lands as connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a big eye opener. One of the things I had always made an effort to instill in him is that we don't quit. And so he'd wanted to drop out of seasons before, and I said, "No, just finish the season." And when he told me that, we were in the middle of his final year in Little League, and I said, "You don't have to go to another game."
Wow. Yeah. That's a big difference, especially like you said, if you have that mindset of we don't quit, to being able to receive that.
I'm grateful that I was able to receive it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I was in a space in my life that I was able to hear that message and recognize that I had made a similar mistake and I didn't want to do that. And so it was about finding ways to connect with him that he wanted to do.
What'd that look like? How did you make those connections then?
Yeah, it really, I'd like to tell you that at the time I sat down with a pen and paper and I asked him how to connect.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest today. That's the hindsight. But really what it looked like was me being more available to him. He loved sushi. And so we would go on these sushi dates.
Okay.
And he really loved food in general, but sushi was one of them. And so we would go out to dinner often. He really enjoys video games, and up until that time in life, I really was against him having even a video console in the house because I thought that was just poor use of time. I ended up buying him a video console and allowed him to kind of explore that part of his life. And so really just asking him for the feedback of how does he want to spend his time?
Yeah. I'm so curious how you were able to make that transition, because I feel like, especially some of the older generation, I've heard that from, now adults kind of with this idea that asking for feedback or even being open to the idea that children can teach us as adults is such a hard concept for some people to be able to accept or be open to. And so I'm so curious, like for you and your journey, how did you get to that place to be able to kind of almost have the humility, it sounds like, to say those things?
Yeah, interesting choice of words. That it was humility.
Yeah.
It truly was. And it, again, I didn't feel that at the time. I really felt broken. I really felt broken because like everything I had thought, mind you, when I had my son, I went to parenting classes. I'm 21 years old going to parenting classes.
Wow.
Really, really sought understanding and wanting to have be able to set that intention for him. So it was really. I just realized I forgot your question.
Yeah, just how you were able to get to that place of humility.
Yes. I would say that it's probably through one of the things that we haven't talked about was my struggle with alcohol.
Okay.
And right around that age, he was about 10 years when I stopped drinking alcohol.
Okay.
And so this was when he was 12. And so I had not been drinking for a little while and had gained more humility through that process.
Wow.
That, it's always been a challenge. One of the things that I've really struggled with is asking for help. It wasn't something that my dad or anybody ever said, don't you dare ask for help. It was something that I think was just implied, and I took it.
Yeah. For you, what were some of the ways that it was implied? Because I think that's such a key piece that I'd heard so many parents ask for, that we kind of get into this tunnel vision of not asking for help.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I really think some of the things that my dad would do, I do remember asking for help.
Okay.
And quite often I was denied.
Yeah.
I remember specifically, so my dad, not interested in sports, very interested in computers.
Okay.
And so I remember asking my dad for a computer to connect.
Yeah.
And he bought me this broken down, like, I think it was like a Commodore 64.
Okay.
It's really, really early in the computer world. And I said, Dad, how do I get this thing working? And he says, well, you got to figure it out. And that's how he learned.
Yeah.
He learned by figuring it out. My intention for that was I wanted to, let's sit down, let's do this together.
Yeah.
I'll watch you. And that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I noticed myself at a certain point in my son's life, he would ask me questions and I would say, hey, we've got this amazing tool called Google.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was essentially doing the same thing to him in a different way with, the use of technology.
And I think what's so interesting that you mentioned that is the fact that I find so many of us parents, I do it myself, where sometimes I miss those bids for connection because I don't necessarily see it in that lens. Like, like you said, whether it's, hey, can you teach me how to, power this computer, or asking a question, wanting to have a conversation, sometimes it can be really easy for us as parents. We've got busy lives.
Yes.
Imagine you also as a single dad, I imagine that was really busy. And to then, kind of see these things and remember that this is them trying to make that connection can be really difficult, I imagine.
I'm glad you said that. Those missed bids for connection are so vital.
Yes.
So vital. I can't tell you, I'm certain I miss so many of them, but I'm getting better at it. And that's been through the humility of my son, I continue to have a relationship with him. Just recently he asked me, he says, Dad, I want to come up to your house and I want you to help me paint the inside of my Jeep.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like thinking in my mind, gosh, I really don't want to do that. That's not how I envision spending my Saturday.
Yes.
And, and my inclination is to tell him how to do it.
Okay.
So, but then I realize it's not about getting it done. It's about the connection that he's craving. And so he came up and we painted it together.
Did it end up being maybe more fulfilling than when you initially kind of heard, let's paint this Jeep?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think definitely for him more so than me.
Okay.
I have a 2-year-old son as well as him, and so I'm kind of feel almost pulled in two directions, like having the mindset that the missed opportunities I had when my older son was young, and not wanting to duplicate those mistakes with my younger son.
Yeah. I mean, how do you navigate that balance, like you said, of not only multiple children, but you've got, like you said, they're quite at different ages, so they're into different things. So it's not one of those, we can do it all together and have everybody, kumbaya in that sense. Right. So how do you navigate that balance?
Well, part of it's built in. My older son lives about an hour away.
Okay.
But when he comes to visit or I go to visit him, my younger son comes with.
Okay.
And they both, my older son loves seeing my younger son, and my younger son gets a big smile on his face and says his name and goes running to him.
Oh, wow.
And so it's kind of a special bond.
Yeah, that sounds really special. So I'm really curious, and I'd love to go back, if it's okay with you, kind of talking about your journey as far as the alcoholism in conjunction then with also single dadding, and kind of did that play a part in some of your journey?
How so? Like resorting to alcohol because I was stressed or overwhelmed?
It could be that, or even just maybe impacting, going back to bids for connection, where some of those things were lost because the alcohol was maybe the choice in that moment. Like, what did that look like for you?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I can remember there were times early when I first got custody of him that my focus was, I knew that I was supposed to read my child a bedtime story.
Okay.
And I would catch myself skipping pages so I could hurry up and get through the story because I wanted to go and take some time for myself to recharge with alcohol.
Really?
Yeah.
And so how, as far as like your sobriety and your journey there, was that difficult to navigate getting to that place where you were able to overcome and able to get to that place of sobriety while also having some of the just routine stressors of being a parent and having to like show up? Because I imagine, with between withdrawals and just the cravings and everything, and having to do that in conjunction with being present as a parent.
It was definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
It was a challenge because I had the awareness, having a sober mind, that I needed to be more present, but also knowing that I needed to treat myself. I needed to take care of myself and treat my soul.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like that, another one of those double binds where it's like, okay, you need to spend more time with your son. You get the clarity of that, but then also the recognition, the realization that I also need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
It's like that when you fly, they say, if you're traveling with children, put your mask on first. I always no, I'm not doing that. I'm putting it on him first.
Yeah.
But that's really helped me to understand, probably more now as a therapist, and understanding that if I'm not well, if I don't take care of myself the night before, getting a good night rest, prepping for my clients the next day, going into it with really this intentionality, I'm not going to be that great.
Yeah. And I mean, to have even just, again, going back to that, maybe our word for today, that humility of being able to say that, of that, if I can't necessarily take care of myself, I won't have the capacity to be able to show up in the way that I really want to.
Not only that, but thinking about, how do I demonstrate that to my son? So then he understands it's okay to prioritize yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Was that helpful for you as far as that reframe?
It was, and he's doing a great job with it. I'm already reading books now to my son, my younger son, that one of the lines in the book says, "It's okay if I hurt someone's feelings when I say no."
Yes.
What a concept.
Right?
Right. Not something that was ever driven into my mind as a young child. It was always like, don't say that. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings.
You're going to hurt someone's feelings. It's a disappointment. It's going to cause something else in someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Causal. Like I control other people's feelings.
Yeah. And man, when we get in that mind frame, it gives us so much control over other people's emotions, or vice versa. If we're kind of giving that power away, right? And then, you made me feel these things. Right. It's like, gosh, man, if we all had that superpower, I think the world would be so much different.
It would be. It would be. But I think it starts early.
Yeah.
I'm in a little personal development right now, and it shows this diagram of what we look like at our young age, and it's kind of this cup, almost like a horseshoe.
Okay.
It says our subconscious is open to anything at that point.
Yeah.
And so right now at this age, this is when children are taking in that data. It's going to shape their paradigm, shape the way that their mind works.
Yeah.
To say, "Ooh, I have to say yes, even though I want to say no right now."
So I'm super curious, even along those lines, because you could have very easily rested in that. Like, this is what I was shown. This is what shaped my paradigm. And kind of just, washed your hands of it and said, well, this is all I can do. And it sounds like, I heard you mention going out and attending classes and trying to gain information. And it sounds like a real drive for something different, that you maybe didn't know what that different looked like, but hey, I'm going to search it out. And so I'm curious, how did you get to that point? Like you said, instead of just kind of resting, well, this is all I know.
I've always been hungry to understand. I've been hungry, curiosity. I want to, I had a guidance counselor in college that said, "John," she said, "you're like a wind-up toy." Because I just wind you up and point you in the right direction. You're going to achieve whatever it is that you need to achieve. And I understand that I like to have guides. I like to know where I'm going. I like to, get clarity. And so I've always been kind of, I read a lot of self-help books, a lot of personal development books that really kind of quench that thirst within me to do better. And really what I've come to understand in all the classes, all the trainings, all the books, is our family, our children. Those are the conversations that need to happen.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, asking them, what do you want? Not just what do you want, because most children, you ask a child, what do you want? Well, I want a PlayStation.
Right, I want a pony.
Right, yeah. But asking more directed questions like, what is it that I do that leaves you feeling loved? What is it what event or what way that I talk to you, what activity that we do together leaves you feeling special?
Yeah.
More questions along those lines of just getting to stepping outside of the material world not things, but actual memories, feelings.
What I love about that too, not only is it an open-ended question, but it's going beyond that. How was your day? Where it makes it really easy for our kiddos to be like, fine, good. One word, right. And they're gone, right. You know, and it doesn't necessarily give you the content, nor does it really allow an opportunity for going back to kind of bids for connection. Versus, like you said, something that's what's going on in your inner world, or, you know, what's feedback that you can give me as far as how's this landing for you? And doing that, you know, in a way that it sounds like really trying to cultivate a relationship versus just kind of resting on, you're my kid, I'm your parent, so naturally we have a relationship.
Right. Yeah, I'm supposed to interact with you this way. It's really important to get their feeling. Yeah. What it, you know, I think most parents will be surprised. I was surprised when I started to ask those questions. Yeah.
Was there something specific that surprised you most?
Time. My oldest son, he just wants my time. He wants my appreciation. You know, he wants my acceptance. Not long ago, I guess it's actually been a couple of years now. He called me up and he says, "Dad," he says, "I'm going to get a dog." And in my head, I'm thinking, this is the worst idea he's ever had. He has no business owning a dog. But what came out of my mouth was, "That's great, son. You'll be an excellent dog owner." And he is. He's fabulous.
Wow. Yeah. And it sounds like in that moment, really kind of challenging yourself to move away from that instinctual kind of like judgment of all the ways that it could go wrong.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of what that fear that comes from parents. You know, I could remember I think I was about 13 or 14 years old, and I told my mom, I had a drafting class in junior high. Okay. And I came home and I said, "Mom, I want to be an architect." My mom had always told me, "John," she's like, "you can be anything you want to be. Just whatever you put your mind to, you can do it." And when I told her that, she said, "Ooh, it takes a lot of college, and you got to be really good at math." And I was terrible at math. Yeah. And that was really, I think, the first time I had ever heard of college. It wasn't something that was discussed in our household at all. And that just kind of like smashed it down. Oh, yeah. And I've recognized times when I've had conversations with my son about that. And he says, "Oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that." And my inclination is to protect him from being disappointed.
Yeah. And I think I love that you said that, because oftentimes when these things happen, it's not that we're going into it as parents with this like evil mindset. I want to like bash my child's dreams. I don't think that I've really ever met a parent that would say that. But that often it does come from that place, like you said, of trying to protect. And it doesn't necessarily land that way, because, you know, we're human, we're individuals, and, you know, that I think there needs to be that space for curiosity. There needs to be that space for possibility.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always joke sometimes with my couples that come in, I say, I've never had a couple come to me and say, "John, we just had a newborn baby. Can you help us screw them up?" Yeah, absolutely. But my office is filled with people who had difficult childhoods, who were misunderstood and weren't treated the way they wanted to be treated.
Yeah. That's why I really love kind of, again, you taking it back. And I think that's such a great little nugget of taking it back to the kiddos and really getting that feedback and having that open dialogue, instead of looking at them as, you know, your subordinates. No way am I going to take your feedback. You know, you're a kid. What do you know? I feel like it's so easy to kind of get trapped in that mindset, but really to have a conversation with them, and a respectful one, where they're getting to see that, hey, like, if my parents think I'm worth asking my opinion, you know, talking to me like a human, gosh, what does that mean about when I go out into the world and what I deserve?
Right. Yeah. I was raised in the era of children are to be seen and not heard. Yeah. And I was spanked. My mom broke many wooden spoons all over my butt. The very wooden spoons that we're spinning with right now. Yes.
Oh yeah, I know the wooden spoon.
Yep. and really I really feel like it crushes a lot of creativity. It really smashes down that part inside of me that says, what if? Why not me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could remember early in my life, we would drive from California to Oregon to visit family. And my dad's objective was to get there as soon as we could so he could brag about how quickly we got there.
Yeah.
And, what that was like for me was, hey, Dad, I got to go to the bathroom. Okay. A couple more exits. And then 10 miles, 15 minutes down the road, Dad, I still got to go.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on, next exit. And what that taught me, I didn't have this conscious thought then, but what it taught me when I reflect on it today is my word means nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not valued. It means nothing. And it's hard. That's I wouldn't say it's a constant battle. It's a battle that I'm gradually overcoming, but it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still in my mind that says, am I really worth it? Yeah.
And again, I mean, I think that's a perfect example where it doesn't necessarily have to be something huge, kind of life altering, where you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that's where it all went wrong.
Yep.
It could be something like you said, where it's that subtle kind of, I've got my mind elsewhere and I'm not necessarily listening to the little ones in my car.
Exactly.
In this instance. And what messages does that send to them, even the really little ones that could become very big pieces of your core beliefs about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. I'm so curious, when you kind of made that shift, kind of going back to that self-care piece, and was there a particular aha moment that you were able to kind of move from maybe, resting on some of these ideas to being able to say, I am worth it?
I don't know if there's any aha moment, any particular shift that occurred. It's been a gradual transformation. Psychologist William James says that we can have something called a educational experience, which is like over time. It's not a sudden, massive change that we experience right in us, but it's just over time. And that's really what's been happening for me over the years. It's been this just having faith, just pushing. Well, okay, let me try this. Let me put this thing right here. This is super. This is not something I would have never done.
Yes.
But when you invited me to do it, I was like, yes. And this is what the personal development that I'm going through right now is saying. It's like, when an opportunity presents itself, try it.
Yeah.
It could be terrible. I could never do another one.
Hopefully not.
Or it could be amazing.
Yeah.
And and that has been really the biggest challenge for me, is like almost like, a lot of times I'll ask clients, when they hear self-doubt, when they experience self-doubt inside, whose voice is that? Oh, yeah. Wait, that's your mom's voice? And how long has your mom been gone? She died in 1987. Oh.
Yeah.
And so it's like going back to that programming, that update in our systems. The parent that installed this idea inside of our head that says we're not worth anything, we've long since dismissed anything they've ever said. We may not even talk to them, but the program is still there, that we're not worth it. And we continue willingly dragging that with us.
Right.
Oh, this bag, it's so heavy. I'm just worthless. Put it down.
Yeah. And I think just remembering that idea that even no choice, right, is you making some sort of a choice. And so being able to kind of figure out, well, in this moment, what choice do you want to make? Do you want to keep, like you said, dragging it around?
Right.
Or are you ready to put it down and really, again, you may not know the how to. We may not have the instruction manual because we don't get one. There are resources, there are ways to kind of at least try to start figuring it out. And like you said, it may not be like an overnight switch. And it sounds like even having some patience for that, maybe a little bit of compassion for yourself as well. That it is a journey, that putting, it sounds like, kind of one foot in front of the other and really starting to walk differently.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Just humility again.
Yeah.
Word of the day.
Word of the day.
Having that humility to just take a few steps and say, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Reevaluate. I'm a big believer that if we just fill the room with a bunch of people that all agree the same way, we're not going to learn a lot.
Yeah.
But if we fill the room with people that have different viewpoints and we explore them, okay, how'd you get there?
Mm-hmm.
And combine them, we run the risk of learning a lot and growing.
Absolutely. And I think what I really liked about what you said there is that what's going on here, really taking a look at it from that place of curiosity. Again, another word of the day. I should just, this episode sponsored by. But, that curiosity of what is going on here and doing it in that way of not judging it already before it's even happened,
right.
But really kind of saying, hey, I'd like to understand more. What's, even if it's emotions, like what is this emotion trying to tell me in this moment?
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And we change our minds. Our, everything changes.
Yeah.
I remember very young age, when we moved from Oregon to California, we moved in with a family briefly while we were waiting for our house to become available. And this family tried all the different types of foods.
Okay.
And they tried, I remember Brussels sprouts. I did not like Brussels sprouts.
I feel like there's many people that would agree.
I have to tell you, I love them now.
Yes.
I didn't give them a shot. I think it was about 5 or 6 years old. I swore I'm never having another Brussels sprout in my life.
Yep.
It was probably about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I tried one and I was like, what?
This is actually really good.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's, another example of going back to the drawing board. Okay. Do I like this now? Not just swearing it off that this isn't for me, but having that curiosity, that willingness to try something.
Yeah. I imagine that's also useful kind of in the parenting world in the sense that as your kids get older, they're likely also evolving, likely changing. And so maybe what landed for them as a way of connection or an interest even at the beginning when they're 5 is very different than when they're 25.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're buying Hot Wheels or Barbies for your child when they're younger, they're not going to like it so much when they're 25.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I imagine if you start the curiosity and, yeah. Well, I know everything. And you kind of rest on that. Oh, I know what they're going to say.
Right.
I know what they're going to do.
Right.
It sounds like you'd also kind of miss some of those changes that maybe, hey, I didn't like Brussels sprouts before, but
absolutely
now I really do.
Right. We continue to evolve. Everyone does.
Yeah.
And so what's to say that our children won't, even as they become adults?
Yeah. So one of my favorite questions that I like to ask is if you had access to a DeLorean, is there anything, if you could go back, that you would kind of tell yourself in preparation for the single dad journey that you had to navigate?
Yeah, I really feel like if I were to go back, I probably would have given up my career and just focused on being a dad.
Wow.
Just focused that on, I mean, I essentially did do that later on when my son was when he was much older, and I had I completed my undergrad program and I went right into my graduate program, and he experienced some challenges.
Okay.
And I got real clear. I got, real clarity that I needed to put my career on hold. And I went into a job that I didn't really like. I went into IT. Sorry if there's any guys that do IT. I was bored out of my skull. And, but ironically enough, me working in the IT industry for 3 years helped me to get the internship that I wanted.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's probably like a big aha moment for me, is like when I'm experiencing something that's discomforting, continue pressing on. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a purpose for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I heard in there too is also being able to be open to that mindset shift and reframing that, you could have, I imagine, got really stuck in there of, these are things that are happening to me. This isn't what I wanted. Oh, yeah, my dreams aren't coming true.
Right.
Rather than being able to kind of say, especially now, like, gosh, that helped me. Like, even though I was bored out of my mind, look at what I was able to do because of that experience.
You're right. And I wish I could tell you that I was right there the whole time. I was not.
Yeah.
I was not. But looking back, I'm able to see, wow, it's really amazing that, that I got that experience. Going back to like basically giving up my career for him, for family.
Yeah.
Time, going back to time again. What most people, for myself, time is valuable to me.
Yeah.
And that's, I like to connect with my spouse with time. And it needs to be quality time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think our children are different.
And I think that's such a good reminder that, like you said, that our kiddos are just that they're human too. And they're not necessarily any different than us. And
just a smaller version.
Just a smaller version. They may have, it may come out differently, but it's not necessarily the core of it. Right. A whole lot of change. Right. Most of us are just those tiny kids that want to feel loved and respected and safe.
Right. Yeah. It's like, one of the kind of principles in type of therapy that I use really focuses on, we all want a felt sense of security.
Yeah.
At our core, that's what we want. And so people are going to experience it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And going back into that checking in, is this landing for you in that way? So that we can adjust as needed to just really make sure that whomever we are, engaging with at that moment in time is able to, like you said, feel that sense of security in a way that they need it.
Right. There it is.
Yeah.
In the way that they need it. Yep. Because, even there's lots of twin studies out there.
Yes.
And, two twins growing up in the same exact household want two different things.
I reference that all the time with some of my clients as well, because it's a perfect example. And sometimes people go, well, they saw the same thing and, we're really good at comparing ourselves to other people. Right. Well, if it wasn't difficult for them, then, it must be something wrong with me that I'm having such difficulty.
Right.
But again, those studies show that it's not necessarily about kind of all of the, external things. You could go through something completely the same in every way, shape, or form and still have a very different experience because you're a different human.
Absolutely. We're all different.
Yeah. I know you mentioned being a learned person, you like education. Were there any resources, books, or support services that you found during your journey that were really helpful, that any, parent who's maybe kind of in a same boat that you would recommend?
Yeah, I really loved the 4 Agreements.
Okay.
I haven't read it. It's actually, this is now a couple times that it's come up, so it's probably time for me to read it again.
Okay.
I really love that book. Probably the one that really started to shift my mindset very, very early, around like 2008, was a book called Change Your Mind and Your Life Will Follow.
Oh, wow. Can you give like a little brief synopsis?
Right. Yeah. It's really about the understanding that, like we talk about like wanting to protect our kids from falling or, getting hurt. Like I have this little story that I like to tell, that my son, I didn't want him to ever get hurt. So I would like follow him around his life.
Yeah.
And when it looks like he's about to lose balance, I'll toss a mattress under him so he doesn't feel the weight.
Yeah.
But what I realized was when I do that, I'm taking the opportunity from him to experience pain and for him to experience his own understanding, have his own consequences. And so this book really helped me to understand that I was overfunctioning. And as long as I'm overfunctioning, he is going to continue to underfunction.
Yeah.
He will not learn. He will not adapt. He will not grow. And it really helped me to kind of divide, like, I like to share this visualization that I'm a whole person. And if I see myself as a hula hoop, and you're a whole person and you're a hula hoop, if we're in a relationship, we don't become one giant hula hoop.
Nope.
You have to have really fast hips if you're going to keep that thing off the ground. You're a hula hoop, I'm a hula hoop. And having really detachment, having we want to be together with a person. We want to be with our family. Our children want to be with us. We don't have to create this overdependence.
Yeah. It sounds like even going back to, again, that idea of putting your mask on first, that it's okay and almost, it sounds like necessary for you to kind of have your own hula hoop, your own identity, to be able to not only give you opportunity to thrive, it also sounds like being able to leave space for them to find their own way to thriving as well.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Find a new way that works. I mean, that's all. That's how our society has been based. Is like, we had chalkboards. Now we have iPads. You can write on the iPad and it projects it on the screen.
Yeah, we have those smart boards that they have.
Absolutely. Yeah. That all came from, wait a second, why are we using this dusty stuff? And you have to take time to erase it in the middle of class? Yeah. Yeah. Curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. And allowing that space, like you said, for them to develop their own thoughts, their own problem-solving skills, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
And, empowering them that, hey, you've got this.
Right.
It may feel uncomfortable for both parent and kid to be able to kind of step back a little bit and have more of that hands off.
Yeah.
And it may hurt the heart a little bit to see them fall. But being able to really kind of look at that bigger picture, like you said, that there is purpose and that we're creating and cultivating that environment for them to be able to grow into these thriving human beings that I feel like most parents, when you ask them, that's what they want.
That's exactly what we want. We just have our idea of how we're going to get you there.
Exactly.
And oftentimes it's not accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. And I thank you so much for being willing to kind of share that story with me, share this recipe. It smells delicious. So I'm so excited to pop it in the oven and then put my little brown sugar crumble on top of it.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to do this. I know it was out of your comfort zone. So thank you for stepping out.
Thank you. It wasn't painful.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. If you or anyone that you know is struggling with any of the topics that we discussed in today's episode, make sure to check out our show notes for support and resources. You can get help. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode of The Real Family Eats. If you're a parent ready to share your real-life parenting story, make sure to reach out to us in our website found in the show notes. And that goes for today's recipe, social medias, support, and resources. All of that can be found in our show notes. So make sure to check them out. And make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe, and stay up to date on all things The Real Family Eats. I hope you'll join us next time for more food for thought and thoughtful food. Enjoy your eats.